When we talk about trauma, one thing that concerns me, and I'm interested in your take on this, is the idea that it can be fueling this sense of victimhood that leads to helplessness. Because right now we're kind of celebrating victimhood, like it's almost as if there's a contest who's the biggest victim, and people are crafting identities around that. And I think the healthy aspect of that is that people are talking about their trauma and confronting it. So it's become part of the parlance of our mainstream conversation.
Yes.
But the unhealthy part of that is the self-identification with the victim aspect of it that breeds helplessness, but is also something that gets validated, like in social media, for example. So how do you parse that?
Well, as you say, it's a fine line because a lot of people are traumatized in this society. And the more we recognize that, the better. And I'm very glad when a celebrity comes out and says, I was traumatized, I was sexually abused, I was hurt, and that really affected my life. Mm-hmm. And it fueled my addiction, or it fueled my illness, or it fueled my depression. That's important. But also, as you say, and in the book we talk about this, is that doesn't mean we should identify as victim. So recognizing what happened doesn't necessarily create a victim identity. The victim identity says, this happened to me and I'm helpless in the face of it. Mm-hmm. Well, that goes against my concept of agency. So in order to be able to exercise agency, you got to let go of the victimhood. Yes, I was a traumatized Jewish infant under the Nazis. That's my reality. There's nothing I can do that's what happened. But I don't have to live the rest of my life by what I made that mean at the time. And so that's the whole thing of healing, is that you recognize what happened, you fearlessly look at it, you don't deny it anymore, but at the same time, you work not to let that define who you are, how you move forward, how you see the world.
Yeah.
Because trauma, again, is not what happened to you. It's what happened inside you as a result of what happened to you. And that's the good news. Because if trauma was what happened to you, that somebody sexually abused you, or that your parents died in a war, mm-hmm. if that was the trauma, there's nothing you can do to change that. That happened. It was never not going to have happened. But if the trauma is the wound that you incurred inwardly, you can heal that wound at any time.
Right.
So actually, recognizing what trauma is an internal psychological wound with manifestations in your body, actually allows you to heal it.
First, you have to recognize that there is a wound. I mean, one of the things that you did with me that was so powerful when we first sat down was to kind of walk me through my history, because I, like I think a lot of people, am very, resistant to, point a finger at either of my parents. And you talk a lot about this distinction between responsibility and blame. And so I think, my reluctance to, think about culpability in my child rearing has held me in a place where I wasn't able to really honestly inventory what occurred and link it to how I, began to behave as I grew older. So unpacking that and creating a sort of a safe environment to speak about that, I think is really instructive in helping people understand the relationship between their development and where they are now in life, and how those things are inextricably connected.
Yes. So in this book, we take a fair bit of trouble to point out that blaming anybody is inappropriate, unscientific, and cruel, actually, and not helpful. At the same time, we show people that the assumptions they made about their lives were very often based on suppressing their real emotions. Mm-hmm. So I've had so many conversations with people that I had a perfectly happy childhood, and then I issue what I call the Happy Childhood Challenge, which takes me about 3 minutes.
Yeah, you can get right to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, it's not that difficult. Mm-hmm. Because, for example, if I was talking to you, knowing you've had 4 children, if I just ask, what would it be like for one of your children to experience what you experienced? What would you say right away?
Yeah, I mean, it would be very painful.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry to interrupt, but just to interject one point on that, I think that I find myself parenting in opposition to the way I was raised.
Yeah.
And perhaps to a fault, right? This pendulum swings too far in the other direction.
Possible.
And even despite that, under moments of duress or stress, I will repeat a pattern that mimics exactly what my parents did.
Yeah. 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 Those are those imprints that you haven't quite worked through yet.
Right.
Believe me, if I could do my parenting over again,
wouldn't we all?
We all would, but that's the whole point. On the other hand, I can tell you that I used to be so worried about my children because of the environment that they grew up in as a result of my wife's and I unresolved traumas. But you know what? They're doing great, and they've dealt with it. So we also mustn't.
Humans are also very resilient.
Yeah, and we mustn't project our anxieties and our guilt onto our kids either. That doesn't help them anyway at all. So
that's one thing. In moments of weakness, I've been known to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's my wife who's like, "You're doing that thing."
Yeah. Well, thank God for our partners. As I think I say somewhere in the book that I married my own lie detector.
Right. Yeah.
Do I say that in the book? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was after you were grumpy and storming around the house for a couple of days after your wife didn't pick you up until finally she told one day, all right, she told you to just get over it and snap out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which years ago would have taken me many years ago would have taken me much longer to snap out of it. The fact that I could snap out of it after one day, that's a sign of progress. You know what? Now she won't even put up with it for 5 minutes because she knows I can do better.
Yeah.